responsibility to being a great Boston athlete in the community. And, he talked all the time about his admiration for Bill Russell and all that he meant in the community. And Jaylen has done an amazing job, and I'm heartened to know that, and I think we all know that he will continue to do stuff here. I think his bridge program might even be this week. As Jaylen and I sat down in early June, and we talked about, potential future, in Boston or elsewhere, I told him that if we were to ever trade Jaylen, that would be a really sad day for me personally. And certainly the emotions that all of us have felt and the consternation we've all felt have been tied a lot less to the moments of highlights in a game, but a lot more of meaningfulness to fans, meaningfulness to the people in our building, and just a meaningfulness of relationships. And so I've felt that. I am with our fans in feeling that. I think Bill would say the same. I think Bill and I have talked about our kids have felt that. And so I do think that we're empathetic and understand that this is a really hard thing. From a basketball perspective, I think that there are a lot of different angles that we have to consider in every move we make. And there's all the information that we have access to that will ultimately inform each of those moves. When I looked at our team and I looked at where the league was heading, looked at the way that we've finished the last couple years, and also looked at the unbelievable way we've played in the regular season in the last couple years, the path looked a little bit more challenging to me. I might be wrong. I'm not going to stand up here and be defensive about that. But the path looked a little bit more challenging with 70% of our cap and such a high percent of our usage tied into two players. And the reality in this era and in this day and age of the NBA, and you could see it obviously with the last couple of champions and some of the teams that were at the very top of the league when it was all said and done at the end of this year, is that you have to do a great job, and you have to have the optionality to do a great job of building out depth that can hopefully replace the irreplaceable individual. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? And we get that. And that's absolutely nothing against Jaylen, right? If you have Jaylen Brown on your team, you should feature him. You should use all those possessions, and you should approach things that way. But I think the importance of depth, and then obviously we have to continue to work on ways to diversify our attack overall. All that being said, still would not have made a move unless we thought the right opportunity presented itself. Obviously, there was a lot of talk in the media. This was not a secret, right? I can tell you, and all of you that know me know that's not coming from me. Everything we do, everything I do is close to the vest, and you all know that. But it was very loud, and obviously there was a lot of talk everywhere. But we still weren't going to do anything unless we felt like it was the right return. And the return for us was twofold, right? It was, number one, is there an opportunity to get somebody in the door or get tools that could allow you to get others in the door that could keep you at a very good level? And number two, would there be assets attached that would then be usable in future deals? At the end of the day, we made what I think was a really hard decision, one that comes with a lot of, very little sleep, to do the trade. I'll start off by saying we like Paul. Paul's a really good player. We're not very far removed from all sitting in our series against Philadelphia and watching Paul be a guy that could carry you for portions of a quarter or a half, but also play a complementary role on both ends of the floor at the highest of levels. He's excited to come to Boston. He actually already came in this weekend, and we're excited to get a chance to work with him. And then from the draft assets, I get it. Like, listen, I'm a fan first and foremost. When I was a kid, I could care less about what picks came back, right? Especially second-round picks. I get it. But the draft assets in this whole deal, the way we looked at it was they're two potential premium assets. And so the quality of the assets, both the 31 Philly and the super complicated 28 pick, which we don't really need to go into here, both offer potential, who knows, big swings at the apple. And then the second-round picks are sweeteners or, that you can use in deals to do things to put your team over the top, or maybe draft Jordan Walsh or Dylan Mitchell or somebody you're really excited about. At the end of the day, those guys aren't Jaylen. But I understand that ultimately, there's a lot of small steps that it'll take to build out the depth and the team that we ultimately want to. And again, we're not up here to defend ourselves in this decision that is going to certainly be scrutinized. We're okay with that. But we're more so dealing with the emotions of, Jaylen not being here, just like you are. And so that's where we are, and happy to open up to any questions and anything else you have.
Brad, a couple months ago, you were talking about how this team was really good when they're full and it's hard to get, and you wanted to work around the margins. Didn't seem like this kind of big swing was in the cards. Was it in the cards then? Or was there, what changed between then and now to go from working around the margins to taking the big swing?
Well, I think there were three, or there were a couple of, let's say a couple of paths, right? A big swing or not. Right, so two paths. I think for me, and again, I go back to, and this is the problem with anything I say, I don't want it to be taken out of context and misconstrued. Like, Jaylen's amazing, right? What I said earlier is that, I thought our path to getting what we ultimately wanted to do, we probably looked more like the last couple of years. And whatever changes we needed to make were not obvious. To do a deal like Jaylen, it requires the right amount of talent and what we deem to be the right assets coming back. So, again, I wouldn't say I'm sure that was more of my opinion on that day. And, I had a lot of time to study, think, and use the expertise of the people in our building, and try to figure out how best to move forward.
And I know there are salary matching rules, but you talk about how you can't have 70% of the salary cap tied up into these two players.
Still do.
You still do.
That's right.
So
good follow-up.
What's next after this?
I think the biggest thing is that it's that plus the picks, plus the optionality moving forward. Paul's contract is shorter. He'll have his choice with his player option next year. But I think that, and again, I keep going back to like myself as a kid. Like, I don't want to hear about picks and optionality. I don't. Unfortunately, in my position, that matters. So that's where we are. Can I tell you exactly what's going to happen? No. We're excited about Paul. We're excited about a lot of our young guys. We're excited about the depth of our group. We're excited about our very best players. And we are, we think we've got a good team, and we think we've got a lot of options moving forward.
Brad, I know it's not you can't compare different trades in the NBA because of the landscape and what existed at the time. But you look at, players of Jaylen's caliber around the league, like multiple of those guys have been traded in recent years. You look at some of the return packages that have been dished out for those guys. Mm-hmm. What made this trade in particular the one you wanted to pursue? And then on top of that, I know you've mentioned like the optionality and stuff. Why now instead of waiting for potentially a better time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I don't know that you can perfectly predict the timing of these things. Obviously, this was not a secret. So people had plenty of information, or at least had a reason to make offers, make a run, whatever the case may be. The one thing that I will say is we tried our very best to look and, again, assess not necessarily we tried to really assess the value of what we thought a pick was worth, or at least best predict it. But it is an interesting time. The new CBA coincided, 7 years after the Supermaxes were instituted. We may not be sitting here if there was a rule in the CBA that said the guys that you drafted that you signed to 35% Supermaxes count as 25% of the cap, because then that would allow you to build out towards the aprons with a lot less flexibility, or with a lot more flexibility. But the reality is that those are hard to build, and you even look back on, and again, I don't want to just throw a bunch of numbers, but like 47% of the cap is what those two guys were when we won it all, right? And that's just going up and up, and that's tough.
So you would say this was primarily a move to restructure the books?
No, I would say that it's a move to keep us at a very competitive level and give us optionality moving forward.
Brad, when did you decide or come to that conclusion, it's time to pull the trigger? And was it when you saw the Philly offer? And I think, as you mentioned, with kids, most fans would say Red Sox, Yankees, Bruins, Canadians. Why Philly?
Yeah, that's a great question. If I say I or me, like, got a huge group in here that lean on greatly, lean on Bill and his expertise, lean on everybody's thoughts, right? But I ultimately, when you say right when Philly offered, no, like, you lose sleep. And you might go back and forth and you might negotiate the terms, whatever the case may be, but these are not decisions you make in haste or in a rush. You've thought about it, and hopefully you make the right one at the right time. I realize not a lot of people think that, and I'm okay with that. The Philly part, I'm with you, that is a hard thing to trade a guy that you, first of all, care so much about, but secondly, have so much respect and admiration for, to a team that just beat you in the playoffs, and that you're going to literally play 6 times before the playoffs next year with our 2 preseason games. But I do think that ultimately when you do a deal, you have to be thinking about you first and the optionality it creates for you. If I was being honest, if that exact deal came from a team out west and you were comparing the two, then you'd probably take the team out west. But that's not the way it was working.
Brad, what, if any, input did Jason have on this decision? And
none.
After the year that Jaylen had, did you think it might be challenging to kind of get them back on the same page they were on 2024 when you made the run to the championship?
I have a real hard, fast rule that I don't ask other guys about other guys, because it's not. I don't want to put them in that position, and so he had none. With regard to coming back and being really good, I think we could come back and be really good. But I chose still being good with more optionality.
Brad, this one sort of goes back to you talking about yourself being a kid. Does this trade make the Celtics better next year?
we'll find out.
Can you see how it would be demoralizing for your fan base to believe that it makes the team better next year?
That it makes it better. Yeah, I mean, listen, I guess I don't really know what you're getting at there, Dan.
Well,
but
the 10-year-old kid in you, I mean, if this happened to your team, would you have a hard time fathoming that the team's going to improve because of this next year?
Well, I don't think the team improves or not improves necessarily based on one player or subbing one player for another, right? We're doing other things too, right? We just had a draft. I'm not allowed to talk about our free agents
Right.
yet, but we've had we looks like we're going to be adding a couple of free agents. So, like, at the end of the day, there's a lot to the team, and as I said before, that's not an individual thing for me. It's about the depth of the group. It's about the team, and so there's a lot of factors there. So I don't know what you're getting at necessarily, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't look at it as player for player as whether our team is better. And I certainly wouldn't want that to be construed as a shot because, again, Jaylen's amazing, and that needs to be said every time so that nothing's taken out of context.
I guess what I'm getting at is can you acknowledge to your fans that this is a tough sell for your fans to think that you'll be better because of this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like, hey, listen, I lost sleep over the fan part of this.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, there's a bunch of 7 jerseys around. I'm pretty sure I bought a couple. So I get it. And, somebody asked me earlier today, do you miss coaching? I said I did this week. Like this is not for the faint of heart.
Thank you.
Brad, kind of from the outside, the general sentiment was it was almost like understandable to pursue a player like Giannis. Then when that doesn't happen, it felt like, and again, some of these are reports that were not you, so maybe you can speak to it, but there became this like sudden level of urgency. Okay, we didn't get Giannis. We have to trade Jaylen, and you're canvassing the league to do so. Was that the case? Like, was a decision made, we're trading Jaylen Brown no matter what? And did you feel like, where your relationship was with him, things become irreparable?
No, it was not the case. And no, I didn't necessarily think that, though I certainly empathized with certainly the magnitude of the coverage and your name constantly being bandied about and everything else. And so and we talked a little bit about that again at the start of the month, as I said, but the answer is no, that we didn't feel like we had to do something.
So how did you get to the point where you did? Like obviously...
Or just what I've said, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but, it was a really hard call. I'm not saying it was the right call. And we wanted to stay good, and we wanted to add more optionality.
My question is twofold. First, for Bill, when something like this happens, of course, the question is going to be with change in ownership.
Yeah.
So my question for you was, is there any mandate or directive coming down from the ownership group that you guys needed to alleviate some pressure with the cap?
No, absolutely not. I mean, this was all about basically trying to win, I think really trusting in our process. We have the best front office in the NBA, and they put in their work and they came to the conclusion this was the best way for us to win, and that's the mandate, is to win. And I just have to keep saying that. There's no, we'll spend whatever it takes to do that. The mandate is to win, and Brad and his team came with a recommendation. This is the way we're gonna win. And I looked at it, and I had the same reaction. I was like, wow, this is the fan in me. Like, it was really tough. And then recognizing, and I said this, back in the fall, like, I recognize that I have accountability, and I'm accountable for it. Brad's accountable to me for it, and his team's accountable to him. But the mandate here was to win, and this, we came to the conclusion. They convinced me this is the best way for us to win, and I got there. I did, but it was hard. It was really hard, and I recognize this is a big move, and frankly, I didn't anticipate it would happen this fast in our ownership, but and we are where we are.
And Brad, as I listen to you describe Paul George and his possible fit here, the word diversifying the attack, the word playing a complementary role on both sides. Just want to make sure I get this clear. Do you see Paul George fitting in a complementary role possibly better while still getting the optionality in your roster than keeping Jaylen Brown in Boston?
I think that we did the deal because Paul George is a good player and we got draft assets. I'm not like this is what I said about being taken out of context. Jaylen's a hell of a player. If he's on your team, you need to feature him and use him, and that's the bottom line. Paul's a different player. Paul is a hell of a player too, but he's a much different player.
Jaylen said on his live stream the other night that at first he felt like everything was fine, and then things kind of went left. From your perspective, when did things go left in those talks with him, and was any of that a factor in whether you felt urgency to move on from him?
It was not a factor in the urgency. I will say we had several talks. If he feels that way, then I'm sorry about that. I am genuinely, because he's a meaningful person in all of our lives, and certainly mine. We, like I said, we had a lot of open discussions about here or elsewhere, and even I would say he, and at least his agent, were well aware of even teams that had the most cursory of interest. So that, at least that was well communicated, or at least communicated. And so we tried to do that to the best of our ability. As things get further down the line, it's complicated to ultimately get over the finish line with any deal. But I'm sorry that he would feel that way.
After the way everything went, did you feel pressure to